Hello class. I'm going to introduce you to some important information about the mid-80s and the height of the Cold War between the United States and then USSR so that you can have some context for this module and the idea of music as a social commentary. The first thing I want to show you, and this is on your module for you to read at your leisure, is a great little article by Tom Patterson of CNN who talks about Cold War movies. So one of the things that is always been done by popular culture is that we make movies, we make TV shows, we make music about things that are happening in the current culture that are problematic. What springs to my mind currently is the movie Get Out, okay, and how it discussed and made fun of race relations, especially in the South, between whites and blacks. Back in the 80s, as I said in my weekly lecture, what we were mainly afraid of, our big cultural fear, was that we would one day get blown up by the USSR. And I'm sure they were fearful that they would one day get blown up by us. So we had some movies that reflected this fear. This first one happens to be my favorite. It is called Red Dawn. You may have seen the remake. In the remake, it is not the Russians that we are afraid of, it is the Chinese. It was a very good remake, but nothing is as good as the original. So I highly recommend, at least watch the trailer, okay? They do have trailers for you here. And they have this great little premise where they talk about what is good about the movie, what's bad about the movie, and what's cheesy about the movie. And then they got a little trailer there for you. Some of the others, Firefox, Falcon and the Snowman, are a little bit more serious. And then there's another comedy which is borders on the extreme, Spies Like Us. But the last and one of my other favorites, Rocky IV, is Rocky who has to fight the big bad Russian, played by Dolph Lundgren, Ivan Drago. And I hear they're actually going to remake this because Ivan Drago killed Apollo Creed. Sorry, spoiler alert. They're going to make another Rocky/Creed movie with Michael B. Jordan, okay, of Black Panther fame, playing Creed, Apollo's son, fighting Dolph Lundgren's son. I predict that will be a big movie. So look through these. It will give you a little bit of the flavor of the time period. A lot of what we do when we are afraid of something is we make fun of things, okay? Or we try to make a message known, which is what a social commentary is, through our artwork. You have a selection of goodies to watch in this particular module. You will be doing a discussion on The Land of Confusion, which is a song and music video by Genesis. So in 1984, when MTV began, we didn't have reality TV shows. We had music videos. And the music videos were an important part of getting the message to the youth, okay, the young kids your age, about what was the problem in the culture. What should we be doing about this problem? How should we be thinking? And as you can see, I've just paused it on the very end of the music video to where President Reagan, and he is being spoofed here, just like you see spoofs on Saturday Night Live of President Trump. We spoofed all of our presidents, not just on Saturday Night Live, but also on and in music videos and TV shows. And he's accidentally pressing the button here for the nuke instead of the nurse. And there was a lot of jokes in the music video about his age. He rides around as a cowboy dressed, in cowboy uniform because Ronald Reagan was a cowboy actor before he became president. And we were fearful that this guy would blow us up. And then, of course, you have the prompt, which is going to ask you some questions about the argument being made. And remember, just because it's art doesn't mean it's not making an argument. One thing I do want to make sure that you know and understand about music videos in the 80s is puppets were really big. So you will see puppet representations of the actual band Genesis. You will see puppet representations of Ronald Reagan. There he is, waking up in bed with his teddy bear. You will see puppet representations of then bad guys, okay, people that we were, struggling against. Gaddafi is here in one of them. We have pictures of Gorbachev, and you may not recognize those people, that's fine. You can still get the argument because we have people today that we are supposedly or being told that we are struggling with. The other interesting costume that Reagan wears is he wears a Superman costume. And some of the lyrics will match that, so I don't want to spoil that for you. I find the most interesting scene to be where he spoofs all the current artists and their appearances. He has Madonna in his music video and Her Stomach Talks to You. He has Michael Jackson, there he is, okay, spoofed as a puppet. So don't let the puppets scare you. They're a little freaky, there's Madonna. But this was considered to be a good music video. I believe it even won some awards in the 80s. And it was a way of visualizing the argument that is being made in the lyrics. Remember, just because it's a song doesn't mean it's not trying to get you to think, to feel, to react, and to respond a certain way. So the Cold War, why was it cold? Well, it was cold because it wasn't an actual war. Nobody dropped any bombs on each other, although you will be reading an article about how close we actually came during some testing to all-out nuclear war. This particular video is by the one-hit wonder Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I'm not a big fan of Frankie, but I do like Two Tribes because it really epitomizes for you, again, using costumes and puppets, how these two men, we have Gorbachev here and we have Reagan here, are in a ring fighting man to man. And what the 80s Cold War movie tells us is that, the article tells us, is that there's a lot in these films that help to sort of visualize that this is a one-on-one combat, mano-a-mano combat. And the reason for that, and again, this is 1983, the reason for that was that the USSR, okay, was communist, and they were trying to spread communism throughout the region, while the United States and Great Britain were democratic and capitalist, and trying to spread those ideologies throughout the world. And that, of course, put us at war with each other in a war of containment, is really the best way to refer to it, where we didn't actually fight anybody, but we helped all the people that were against the USSR. And that included, by the way, Osama bin Laden. One of the big visual metaphors of the Cold War was the Berlin Wall, which divided East and West Germany from each other. It would be like having a wall across the Mason-Dixon line dividing the North and the South. And families were split up and divided. Ronald Reagan gave a famous speech where he called for Gorbachev to tear down that wall. The wall was torn down, ironically, while I was in college. And that really epitomized the fall of the USSR and the beginning of one world superpower, the US, without a foe or a foil to keep it in check. So these videos and these readings that you will be doing in this module all ask you to do various things, and they all ask you to consider the artwork that you're watching, that you're viewing, that you're reading, pictures, movies, music videos, and lyrics as art that is making a commentary about a certain theme, okay? And that theme that we're going to practice with this module is the Cold War, because you're going to be picking your own social issue that you're going to be doing your research paper on for paper 4. So the Cold War, it was very cold. It was cold because there was no actual war. And it was a war that involved a lot of fights over ideology, fights over who is right, who is better, why other people who think differently than us are quote-unquote bad. It was very old-fashioned thinking. But it was something that we, people in my generation, lived with. We even did the bomb testing where you had to hide under the desk. And as I mentioned in my notes, growing up in the East Bay, we were told all the time by our teachers that we'd be killed first anyway because we lived so close to Lawrence Livermore Lab. So remember too that the videos that I've connected here for you get launched in a new window. So sometimes students email me and say, oh, there's no video there. You have to click on the link which launches the video in a new window for you. Okay? So this will give you some context. Tom Patterson's article is a good one. It's short, but he also has links here to the 80s show that CNN is running and other Cold War films of the 1980s. And watching one or two of them will probably help you in understanding the context, okay, the tone of the mid-80s, how people were feeling about their government, what people were feeling about the USSR at the time, what the common fears were, and how we were working to save ourselves from mutual destruction. All right? Enjoy.